Welcome to another episode of Bring Out Your Undead. I am Megan, and I have reanimated both Ehlwyn and Peps to continue our conversations in D&D 5th edition. This episode is called Infections, Down with the Sickness.
No, I'm gonna get that song stuck in my head like when we did the zombies episode.
I feel like he wanted me to sing that
down
one.
with the sickness.
And I don't have the voice for that one, unfortunately. Yeah.
Throwback to high school.
Yeah.
Such an amazing start. All right. In this episode, we'll be putting on our masks and gloves and getting elbow deep in the undead remains of creatures who have been infected, infested, and diseased, and now walk the countryside as undead.
Okay, but before we get any further, though, I want to ask you about your opinions around illness. Would you rather have a fever or the chills? Would you rather have like a wet, mucusy cough or sickness or a dry, raspy one? And are you one of those people that want to be left alone until they get better or pampered and babied?
All right, I got this one. I'd rather have chills. I'd rather have a raspy voice because that's sexy. And I would like to be alone for day one and then pampered for everything else after that because I don't like being gross in front of people.
Yeah. I just had the flu. So I feel very like this is very pointed at me. I don't know. When I get the fever, I get chills. That's how I know I have a fever. So
Yeah.
For me, that's the same thing. I am now over the wet mucusy cough and just have a dry one that will not go away. And it's super annoying. So like I almost like if it was just the wet one, it was there for a couple days and gone, fantastic. But like I don't know if it's because as a baker, I like breathe in so much flour and powdered sugar all day that I just always have a cough. But I feel like I always have that like dry cough. And, you know, I have been used to being left alone in my past. This one, I wouldn't say I was pampered and babied, but my boyfriend did do things for me. He went and got the kids Easter baskets because I couldn't go to the store.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And just did very nice things. And like dropped off sherbet and like Gatorade and stuff for me, which was a very nice change of of my past. So I rather enjoy that. I don't need to be like constantly, but just a little show of like, here are things that you might need or like, or what can I do?
One thing off your plate, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think I would probably definitely rather have a fever than chills. Because, like, with chills, I always find that it comes with, like, the total body aches as well. And, like, that is just miserable. Whereas, like, a fever, you can just, like, you can deal with it. You can take Tylenol or something like that for it. I would definitely have a dry raspy cough. Not only because it's, like, Sophia Bush sexy with the dry raspiness, but, like, I don't know, coming off of like the tales of COVID and everything that we experienced during the pandemic for, you know, the 3 years or whatever, the like harsh coughs, I can't be around people, and I don't like being around people when I have it as well. So yeah, I would rather have like a dry raspy one. And then like I'd say like the same, like I don't want to be left alone, but I also don't want to be hovered over.
Yeah. Don't touch me. Yeah.
Like,
so,
like I need like these like few basic things from you, but like just like let me go home and die.
Yeah.
No, but
it is nice having like teenage kids now because like in the past, as a mom, if you get sick, like nobody fucking cares. You know, like you're still the mom. You still gotta do all the things. Like nobody can fend for themselves. You have to still like keep your children alive. Now that they are teenagers, I can text them and say, "Can you make me some ramen?" And they will bring me ramen. Like, so that is very nice now. Like I've reached that point. I even had a friend from California Amazon me some soup.
I've done that for people, like especially during COVID. I would Uber Eats things to people so that they would have something. I do that now, even now. Someone's just in a bad mood, I'll send them like ice cream or something through Uber.
I've gotten that from you many a time. Do you need me to send you ice cream?
Do you need ice cream? It's always ice cream. Do you need ice cream? I can send you some ice cream.
I might need a little ice cream.
Always need ice cream. She also sent a 5-pound bag of gummy bears.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is a keeper of a friend.
Yeah.
Shout
let
out
that
to
one
Jen.
go.
Thank you.
So we're talking about sicknesses today because we're going to be talking about a couple of very specific types of undead creatures that have some sort of either ickiness to them or some kind of infectious nature to them. So that being said, I'm going to start off this episode with talking about a pop culture theme reference, which a lot of us might understand. It's from the award-winning game The Last of Us that was recently turned into a TV series starring our goddess Lady Mormont and our king daddy Pedro Pascal.
Oh, Daddy Pedro.
Mm-hmm.
So again, the premise, the reason this comes up is simply because the premise of this series is that it is a post-apocalyptic U.S., so basically the United States, where a fungal virus takes over the lands and a quest for the cure begins. So very simplistic story. But the important thing to note is that the fungus creatures in this setting very much do match a few of the D&D monsters we see in the 5th edition world. There's more of the granule creatures like the Quagoths, who have a spore plant-like version in their like their servants level as well. Or even things like the risen corpses, which are technically actually plants, but they're like undead that get risen from XYZ. We do cover a few of these monsters and beasts in episode 238, so if you want to check them out for a little bit more detail, feel free to go back and have a listen. But the one that I want to give a little bit more detail on right away, of course, are the Myconids. So we have talked about them in the past, but I think that they fit really well in this theme to kind of kick us off. So these, of course, are the fungi creatures of the Underdark that have numerous kinds of spore abilities that mirror that of the monsters in The Last of Us, such as they hate sunlight. So you will usually find them in the dark, or as in D&D, the Underdark, or just in weird damp places, or only wandering around in the nighttime. Again, Myconids are from the Underdark. But in The Last of Us, you would only ever find them in dark, creepy places. They're basically connected to each other through fungus strands so that they can actually feel the pain from each other. So if one gets injured, the others can feel that pain. And they can also speak telepathically with each other, basically through that interconnected web of fungus and growth. They also follow a kind of hierarchy, where the large myconids, such as the Sovereign, who use animated spores, which is the ability to throw spores at a corpse of a humanoid and animate it, hence spreading the disease. So again, the concept within The Last of Us is that there's this fungus that infects the human body and then controls the mind, and then eventually takes over the body and turns them into a giant fungus creature itself. That kind of mirrors that in the sense that it's throwing spores at dead humans already, and then turning them into animated fungus creatures to have to fight it. And then, of course, last but not least, it's, of course, how it is spread. So in The Last of Us, we know that the disease is spread through either being cut or breathing in the spores themselves. So in the game, you actually have to wear gas masks around. And I find that if you're playing in a game with myconids or other type spore-like creatures, we've talked about it before that like breathing air and other things is going to be musky and gross and probably something that you're going to have to like navigate as a D&D group and or as a DM. So again, if you want to play a The Last of Us kind of themed game, the Myconids are a good one to pull in. So, but that being said, as I mentioned, we are going to be talking about a couple of different options today. The first one I want to talk about is the Fungal Servant. That sounds disgusting, and I hate it already. So this comes within the Candlekeep Mysteries. There's a specific location called the Cavern of Souls, which is described to be a place overgrown with fungus. There are even bodies attached to the ceiling where bodies hang down from that are being taken over by this fungus itself. The whole concept here is that the fungus called mycelial. This my brain is soup.
It's mycelial, Megan. Fuck, watch Star Trek. God.
Anyways, this is the fungus that Xanthoria found she could connect to and communicate with anything else infected by this grossness and fungus itself. So within the layer, you will find what's called the Fungus Servant. These are used by Xanthoria as guards or deterrents for within her space. For this reason, they want to use, basically it says to use the Mummy Lord Breakdown, then just omit the layer and regional effects, but then replace any of their sand-based attacks with fungus theme.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense to me, because all of the sand-like themes are under their legendary actions that you remove. So
Okay.
So stat block breakdown for them, because that's what it tells you to use. They're a challenge rating of 15, with a natural armor class of 17, with a hit pool point of 97. Some of the interesting things about them, because they're undead, obviously, is that they are immune to all those classic things like necrotic, poison, bludgeoning, piercing, all that good stuff. But it also knows all the languages that it knew in life, and actually has skills in history and religion. So
Weird.
Again, it's a weird, like,
It's a weird reskin, but like it could work.
Right? Like, I don't understand. Like, yeah, because like the only attacks that it gets if you remove its legendary actions is it gets its multi-attack with its dreadful glare, which is basically it targets one creature within 60 feet of a wisdom save, and then you become frightened of it. Which makes sense to me. If you come across a mushroom creature, I feel like I would be a little bit scared. But other than that, it's got its Rotting Fist, which again isn't a sand-based attack, but I think it can fit, which is basically a necrotic damaged hit with a DC 16 saving throw, or you get Mummy Rot, which...
I mean, it would be like fungal infection, so like you just get like some of the fungus on you.
Yeah. So I would reskin that to fit that. But it's weird that the book literally just says, just use the Mummy Lord stat block and remove the legendary actions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, because the legendary actions are fitting in my mind. So they have Blinding Dust, which is basically a sand swirls magically around the Mummy Lord, or this Fungal Servant.
Mm-hmm. Which instead of sand, just make it spores.
Make it spores, and then each creature within 5 feet of it must succeed on a Constitution of 16 or be blinded, right? And then there is a Whirlwind of Sand, where the creature magically transforms into a whirlwind of sand and moves up to 60 feet. So I would say just like poofs into spores and moves.
Yeah.
Right. And then while in this form, they're immune to being damaged, grappled, petrified, knocked prone, restrained, XYZ. Right.
Mm-hmm. Seems pretty beefy for a servant.
Servant. That's what I was thinking too. Like it's something called a servant, and they're like, take this lord.
Like I could see if it was like the Myconid sovereign or something like that. That was like, take this lord and make it the sovereign. But like for something that's a fungal servant, like that's pretty beefy.
Yeah.
Like CR15, like unless it's like you take them because they're servants, you're more looking at it as there's like a horde of them, and like this is kind of, and they're just one stat block for all of them.
So the issue is that in the book it's written that there is only one of them.
There's only one.
So there's 3 in a room, and there's only one of these that floats around in Candlekeep. In this,
so it
this
is
dungeon
the
area.
Fungal Servant.
It is the Fungal Servant.
And it's like I guess the servant of the big bad evil person,
Yeah. So it's like the last stand before you get to the big bad.
Kind of.
I could see that being beefy if it's like the thing you get before the big bad. Yeah. The pre-boss fight.
Yeah. You're not running into Fungal Servant.
Yeah, you're not.
As you're wandering through the Underdark.
Yeah. So you find this one, the Cavern of Souls, which is L3. So on the map, it's like the center of everything.
Mm.
So like L4 is the bedroom, which is off to an offshoot to the side, and like a couple of other places. So it's like in the center. So it's probably the first thing that it's one of the first things that you come across, technically. But yeah, it does say for one Fungal Servant, use the Mummy Lord stat block, but omit their layer actions and regional effect. Ooh, never mind. Okay, so they get their legendary actions. So all those things I just said before, they get.
So they get their legendary actions, but they don't get their layer effects.
Their layer effects.
actions and layer effects. Okay.
Yeah. So that like the ones that we talked about in themed, that you do get that. So there we go. Retract that statement. And then for the other 2, use the Vrock stat block for the other 2, which was not that interesting. So it is like, it's almost like this to me is the what are they called? Like the Minotaur of the Labyrinth.
Yeah.
Is what this feels like to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have it necessarily in this room right away, but you might have like signs that it exists, and then you kind of like avoid coming across it, right? So, but that being said, let's roll some dice and let's talk about some possible creative uses here. So
4.
Team.
16. Fantastic. All right, so first, as always, let's talk about some role-playing options for these ones. So this could be anything from role-playing tips for DMs, or maybe even just like a little quest hook if you have one. But for me, the description that kind of inspires me that I would kind of lean into if I was a DM would be the fact that they are covered in spores. And so if it does have all of these legendary actions where it can poof into spores and like move about, I feel like that is something that you would definitely want to lean into. Like, it's hard to breathe in this room. Yes, it knows its language isn't new in life, but I feel like it's going to have that raspy voice that we talked about, like when you're feeling sick, because it's constantly breathing in its own spores.
So I just got to the point in playing Baldur's Gate 3 where you're in the Underdark and you meet the Myconids, and I made friends with them. So all I'm thinking is like, I'm friends with them. So I'm like, what do you mean they're scary? I'm like, they're my friends.
Just a friendly little guy.
They're just friendly little spore people.
Well, this isn't a myconid though. This is just like a fungus.
This is just a fungus
thing.
guy. Yeah. So, but it's like all I'm thinking about is like the myconids and things like that. But I mean, so I would kind of use it in that context though. I mean, they are, in this one specific place in the Candle Keep. But I mean, it's kind of one of those like, what did you say? What's her name? Was the it started with a Z.
Xanthoria.
Xanthoria.
Starts with an X.
Oh, with an X.
Oh,
it's one of those tricky ones. I mean, like maybe as kind of like a quest or a plot hook, you are sent to actually go explore and like deal with Xanthoria. And I mean, like, it's a kind of a given and obvious, you're going to deal with this chick and you have no idea what she's about, and then all of a sudden it's just fungus everywhere. And I could see it being that like you come across like a section where on the outside it just looks regular and it's just like normal brick or like stone castle. And then like you go in and it's just covered. Like it is like leftover dinner that was forgotten in the back of the fridge, covered in spores and fungus all over the entire room. And these guys just out from the walls and they're there. That's what I picture in my brain.
Yeah, I can. All right. So in one of my games, I am currently playing a Circle of Spore Druid / Paladin with my oath to the ancients, and it is to an ancient deep dragon. So her whole thing is spores and fungus, and
spores are friends.
And she has a little myconid friend named Phineas who has a little, like, those little plastic knives that they put in like your cheeseburger to hold it together. That's what he like has as a dagger.
Oh my god.
But
like
anyway,
a cocktail sword?
Yeah, like a cocktail sword. And he just like hangs, because she's a gnome. She's a deep gnome. He hangs out on her shoulder with a little cocktail sword. Anyways, so
it might be the most darling thing that I've ever heard.
So cute. But one thing my DM does with spores and like the fungal network and stuff, which I think you could really bring into this sort of situation, is there is like an entire network of fungus and spores and that, and I can see through that. Like I can talk through the fungus, I can see through the fungus. So like if there's a mushroom on the wall, I can like put my hand on it and see through the network of fungus through this whole cave and see into different parts of it. I also got an ability through seeing the matriarch of the Circle of Spores, where I can sort of ask the dead a question once a day through the spores. So like I think those are very interesting ways, and I think you can definitely flip that into the like BBEG portion of it too, to where they have those sorts of abilities and they can see through the spores and like they know you're coming because they have these things throughout the whole
security system.
Yes, right. Of fun, and like you don't notice, like you don't see a mushroom on the wall and think, oh, I'm being watched.
Yeah. It's
you
just
know,
part of the environment. It's just you don't even pay attention.
Yeah.
Or if you start killing them, like they can feel each other's pain, right? So once you get to the big bad evil guy who's connected to this, it's just like, you have caused me a lot of pain, and so I will cause you pain back, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like as a DM, I would say like use that in a very you can use that in a very interesting way. You can connect it all, and it's almost like a magic mirror or crystal ball or something where
Mhm.
the BBG can see through it. And even maybe talk to, like you hear a voice coming through a mushroom in the wall, or like a Myconid steps out from it
Yeah.
and starts, like, I know you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that does kind of bleed right into the topic of like the exploration pillar for these kinds of things, right? Like you're talking about the
Mhm.
environmental like it's like you're interacting with the creatures, but you're also interacting with the environment because they're a part of it, right?
Yeah.
So, in terms of the exploration piece, yeah, you're probably going to be walking over mushrooms that like feel like they have emotional reactions. Like I feel like if you're walking around with a druid or someone who's connected to nature, they're going to notice this a lot faster than anyone else, right?
Mhm.
They're like, something's not right about like the fungus growing on the walls or the way the lines are working. But then they can also use that to track it, right? So if you're looking for one of these, like I feel like has a bit more of a higher tide connection to everything. So it might be in the center of where all the webs are going.
Mhm.
And that's how I would do it. Because to be honest with you, like the fact that it has a mummy lord stat block
Yeah.
makes me think that this is your big bad evil guy in your dungeon who isn't just the big evil wizard. Like this is the thing you fight before you talk to the main person,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
And so like I feel like if you're trying to hunt it down or it's there, you almost want to walk away from where the strands are going. Because it's almost like I feel like as this thing moves through the dungeon, like almost like the webs follow it around.
Mm.
Like visually, I'm thinking like the way that Vecna worked in Stranger Things, how they were like webbed into everything.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of how I picture that happening with this guy. So that's what that exploration pillar for me is the following those webs or walking away from where they're like congregating because you're gonna find it.
Mm.
So what about you, Ellie, for the exploration side? You can also talk about like the horror and dread of it all too.
Yeah, I was gonna say like for me it's kind of like the horror and dread of it, and kind of like as you were saying like the webs follow it and things like that. I don't know why my brain went to what was his name? Was it like Hex from Fern Gully, where wherever he went, it was like the things died behind him, and so it was kind of like as he moves around, it's like the funguses like kind of like ebb and like they'll follow him, but then like from the other areas. So like it'll be like almost like a fungal trail type thing. That'd be really cool. But like I feel like you could really, for like the body horror and things like that, like you could really play up this guy he is straight fungus. So like taking those natural kind of like inspirations,
the smell,
the like everything, and then just really getting in there and just being really descriptive about it and like really painting that picture for your players. I always find that those are the most engaging moments or some of the most engaging moments at the table when everybody's kind of like on the same page of like this is what we're dealing with. This is shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would just be playing up into the body horror again, like kind of like I had said. It could even be that it's, a part of the room that it can kind of, that's the only thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking of it, like merge in and out of the walls of the actual fungus that surrounds it and things like that. Like it kind of materializes itself. And like really like, yeah, the smell, the like sounds, the sound of like just anybody that's kind of like grown up around forests and things like that, the sound of like crunching on fungus and like underbrush and things like that in a forest and things like that, and just like really painting that picture and just making it feel as good as possible.
Yeah.
I like when you were talking about that, what came to mind is those like mushrooms that look like they're bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah, like throwing some of those.
Yeah, there's those and like
there,
there's like the big like or just like the red capped mushrooms like we have here in like the Pacific Northwest. We've got like the massive ones that grow on like the sides of the trees and things like that that get like really gross and slimy and yeah.
I know this guy like is in a very specific area, right? But I do think you could use them with other things. And me being me, deep dragons and black dragons are the two that really come to mind that you could like just pick this guy up and put them like they are a deep dragon's like top minion. And like that's deep dragons have a like spore breath, and that like the entire den and area and even the dragon itself gets covered in fungus. So I think this would fit perfectly into that. And like I would have like leading into this, you would see corpses like stuck to the wall, half disintegrated with, you know, fungus and mushrooms and that. Just like you said, it has a thing where it like can blind you, and it just has like mushrooms growing out of from its eyes, and like that's how it blinds you, is it implants it into your eyes. Like those just sort of laying around as you get closer in and that kind of stuff. I would lean into what its like actions and attacks are, and that's how you would find things.
Yeah. Speaking of which, our next topic, of course, is the combat aspect of things. So because we have learned that the Mummy Lord is the way that it is, I wanted to point out a couple of things before I kind of go into my thoughts. Mummy Lords are technically spellcasters. So this thing can do spells based on its wisdom. So they have things like Sacred Flame and Thaumaturgy, which I think is hilarious because like it can make like loud, weird, booming noises. It's got things like Command and Guiding Bolts and Hold Person, Animate Dead, like, and then like Insect Plague, which I think fits quite nicely.
That does,
yeah.
But
Animate Dead really fits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like I love this one. There's another one of the legendary actions called Blasphemous Word, which I didn't mention, but I feel like it themes really well. So basically this is a non-undead creature within 10 feet of this thing hears a magical utterance and must succeed on DC 16 con save or be stunned. So it's almost like the loud shriek of these things. Like, and I imagine I would almost like pop that off as a reaction just for show once as a DM of like, if you go into like a battlefield with this in the center of it and you kill one of its like little minions or little Myconids, and it feels that, and then it just screams, and then everyone gets stunned, or whoever doesn't save gets stunned, and then just do that once, just for show. And then obviously I would just go into doing like its blinding dust and other things to like mitigate and keep itself safe, because again, it is quite squishy technically with a natural armor of only 17, and it can only walk 20 feet, so it's not going to be able to run away from you very quickly. So I feel like if it is going to die, it's going to start using a lot of its like making it more difficult for you to kill its skills, right? But it wants you out of its lair. It's going to fight you for sure.
Yeah.
But what about you, Ellie?
I was thinking just kind of like more of like what happens like when it dies. So you've gone through, you've actually finally killed it, and it just kind of, it shrivels up and then just everything poofs away. Like the spores poof away, everything poofs away, and it's just as if it was never there to begin with. And then you guys kind of like, your players stop and they're like, well, like there's no trace. There's nothing to loot. There's no trace of anything. Like the only things that are to loot are, you know, like Pep said, like there's like dead bodies that are plastered against the wall and things like that. So it's like its victims are there to loot and all of that sort of stuff. But there's just nothing. It just poofs into spores, floats away on the breeze, and then you're just kind of sitting there going like, was that it? Are we done? You don't know if it's going to come back. What's going on?
Well, especially
was that even
like,
real?
Can it like poof out and then
exactly like it can poof out, like are we done?
Yeah.
And then you kind of have like that whole like they're going to be walking on eggshells for the next little bit as well. You're going to kind of have a little, as a DM, you're going to have a little snicker because you know it's gone, and you can always kind of throw in the you secretly roll dice behind, and you're just rolling dice for fun just to freak them out.
Just cause
I always like to kind of add in like that psychological warfare.
I love it. I love it a lot.
Yeah. I see with their animate dead, like I said, with the like bodies laying around, like I would 100% use that. I would use the environment in which you are in to bring more into this fight, so you're not just fighting this one guy. Like the walls turn into Myconids and come out. He's animating dead and pulling the past adventurers who came here to kill him up, and sending them at you.
Yeah, because like, sorry, like it just reminded me of the fact that within the Candle Keep, the folks that have died get taken up by the fungus and they get strung upside down or like hung from the ceiling, right? So it's almost like it would pull them down and reanimate them, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, I mean, it has a lot going on with the spells and, you know, being a CR, 15?
And that, 50.
Yeah.
17,
But
like that.
I think these are so like impact the environment around them that I would pull that also into the combat. It wouldn't just be straightforward. They're hitting this one guy. Like things are coming from all around you because of this guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that is the Fungal Servant who turned out to be more powerful than we thought he was going to be. But there you go.
Yeah, you know, you hear servant and you're like, well.
Interesting. How fun for you. Yeah, no. But yeah, so I believe the next one is up to you, Peps.
We're still sort of on the path of plants. Before we get into the yellow musk zombie, as this is an undead episode, it is important to discuss the yellow musk creeper. This is a vine with an orchid-like flower of yellow and purple coloring. It releases a musk that attracts its prey and stays stationary until they are close enough to strike. First, the creeper destroys the mind of the humanoid prey, and then it implants a bulb inside of them. Within 24 hours, this bulb sprouts a vine from its host and magically reanimates it. This new yellow musk zombie is under the control of the young vine. The zombie will defend the vine at all costs and will also become its fertilizer. It takes about 7 days for the vine to become full grown, and then it will burst from its zombie host, leaving the corpse in a pile of decomposing goo and entrails. If the zombie is destroyed before the creeper reaches its full grown stage, then it also withers and dies. Looking at their stats, I'm going to go over the creeper first and then the zombie. The creeper is a medium plant and is unaligned. Also, I didn't mention these are from the Tomb of Annihilation. So it's unaligned. It only has an AC of 6. It has about an average HP of 60. It's a CR of 2. It has a whopping walking and climbing speed of 5 feet. So they're not going very fast. Their highest stats are strength and con with a +1. Wisdom is average. Everything else gets negative modifiers. They have a few condition immunities, but not like we normally see in undead things, just like 4 of them. They do also get blind sight of 30 feet, which is interesting for a flower to get blind sight. They have false appearance, so when they remain motionless, it is indistinguishable from an ordinary flower. They get a regeneration. They regain 10 hit points at the start of its turn. If they take fire, necrotic, or radiant damage, that trait does not function until the start of its next turn, and the creeper dies only if it starts its turn with 0 hit points and does not regenerate. It has 2 actions. First is the touch with a +3 to hit and does 3d8 psychic damage. If the target is a humanoid, that drops to 0 hit points. As a result of this damage, it dies and is implanted with a yellow musk creeper bulb. Unless the bulb is destroyed, the corpse reanimates as a yellow musk zombie after being dead for 24 hours. The bulb is destroyed if the creature is raised from the dead before it can transform into a yellow musk zombie, or if the corpse is targeted by remove curse or a similar magic before it animates. So if your party member gets hit with that, you got 24 hours, and that's it. Second, they get yellow musk, which they can do 3 times a day. The creeper's flowers release a strong musk that targets all humanoids within 30 feet of it. Each target must succeed on a wisdom save. or be charmed by the creeper for 1 minute. A creature charmed in this way does nothing on its turn except move closer or as close as it can to the creeper. A creature charmed by the creeper can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on a success. The zombie is a much smaller stat block as it is only a quarter CR challenge rating. It is a medium undead, also unaligned. Its AC is 9, an average hit points of 33, and it can go 20 feet. So, you know, with the creeper attached to it, it feels like it's flying from 5 to 20 feet. Also, its top ability scores are strength and con. Everything else is a negative modifier. It only has the condition immunities of charmed and exhaustion, and also has blind sight of 30 feet. It gets undead fortitude. If the damage reduces the zombie to 0 hit points, it must make a con save of a DC of 5 plus the damage taken, unless the damage is fire or from a critical hit. And a success, the zombie drops to 1 hit point instead. And it only gets 1 action, which is a slam attack with a +3, which does 1d8 plus 1 bludgeoning.
Well, would you look at that?
Would you look at me?
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's very interesting, like thinking about just pretty flower, like hosting a corpse to grow and move.
Pretty flowers.
Hey, man, that's just nature.
Yeah.
All right, raise your dice, ladies. Let's talk.
5.
I got 5 too.
Roll, ladies.
Roll off.
I got 11.
I was gonna say, I feel like your dex is higher than mine, Peps, so you can go first.
I got a 13 that time.
Well, there we go. All right, so we're gonna talk about role playing as we do first. So again, anywhere from like any of the descriptions that inspire role playing tips or any quest plots that you might have. Honestly, a description that I really enjoy is the fact that it's a pretty flower that takes over dead bodies when you're talking about the Musk keeper, like the yellow. And I feel like that's a good way to like trick your players. Because like you'll be running through a field or doing something like wandering the Underdark or something like that, and you come across this beautiful like planter of flowers, and then you just slowly learn that it's like the outside of some hag's hut that like that's where she decomposes all of the bodies, is that she puts like all of her experimentations or XYZ like in these planters, and then these plants just overgrow and take over them and then just kind of like slowly decompose them for her.
Yeah.
Which is a different way to use them, but like if you were to come across one and accidentally touch it or irritate it in any way, shape, or form, it's going to get upset at you. And then you're going to end up fighting its flower.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like to think about like that druid that has speak with plants.
Yeah.
And like how that conversation would go, because I feel like this would, if you did get the chance to speak with it, would be a very tricky plant. Like it can charm people. Like it has that ability to put off the scent and charm you. So it would be trying to get you like to come closer to it and like trying to low key play like it's just, I'm just a regular flower. Yeah, I can tell you that, but I need you to come here. I can't quite hear you, you know? So I think it would be that type of a like trickery if you did have a druid who casts that.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah. I was kind of thinking, like, what if your party was on a quest to find like specific ingredients for an antidote or a potion or something along those lines? You don't have a druid in your party, you don't have a ranger, you don't have a high nature, you guys are just on this quest to go get ingredients, and you stumble across this and you're like, oh, this is what we need. It kind of fits the description. It's a yellow flower, totally what we need. Or like just a single one of your party members, like you could do this as like a, you know, it's side quest or something along those lines, but all of a sudden they stumble across this garden and it has all of these flowers in it, and they just start picking these flowers because they don't know any better. You know, it's so unassuming because it's just a pretty flower.
Yeah. Or it's the druid or whoever's in your party knows what the ingredient is that you're looking for, but doesn't want to tell anybody about it because they know that it's like something they may not want to go looking for.
or they're the one that requires the potion and they're kind of incapacitated and they just kind of give like a half description of like, you're looking for a golden flower.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go and you look for it. Could be that. But yeah, it could, they just don't want to go find it.
Yeah.
Something along those lines, like you just need to go find ingredients and you stumble across this guy.
I always find that any kind of like plant and or like natural occurring creature it can be good for like reaping ingredients from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's not a lot about that in the DMG. I'm finding that sometimes we'll talk about a creature randomly that has that option to say like, this is worth money, the horn of this is worth a lot of money or what have you. But it's not something that's wildly like harvesting and gathering crops and doing these things to get like, again, your spell components that technically is a mechanic in the game is not utilized as much as I think that it could be, right? So I think that's a good call out, Ellie, that I think that like if you want like your wizard wants a learn a specific spell, you have a components list that you have to go find to be able to learn how to do the spell.
And I think I've seen a couple of like wizards and sorcerers and things like that have played the character beautifully, where they actually look at components or they look at, this is a verbal and, I'm not able to actually count. So they kind of like police themselves, but you're right. It's not something that is as widely kind of utilized as a mechanic. And it's something that I appreciate as both a player and kind of calling out people on like, can you do that? Do you have a diamond worth 1,000 gold?
Oh my God. We police ourselves on a regular basis to the point where Adam trusts us to a degree. Because like we started our last session on Sunday basically saying, hey, in leveling up my character today, I realized that I've been using this ability incorrectly for the last like 3 sessions.
Yeah.
I would like to rectify that this is how it actually works now. So everybody at the table understands that I know that I'm an idiot and I'm not doing it on purpose.
Yeah. Because some of it is just like so confusing. Like I got into this with like spell scrolls and stuff. Like there are 2 sections. They're 80 pages apart. like one was like anybody can use a scroll, and then the next one's like only the people who have that spell on their spell list can use a scroll. It's like, which one is that? So like I get that. I get the like trying to figure out what your actual ability is and does.
Yeah, the way that I've kind of always approached spell scrolls is like it's a found enchanted item. So like as long as you can read, like if it's written in deep speech or something like that, like you would have to be able to read the language, but you can use it.
Yeah.
Whereas, it's kind of like the same as like Wand of Missiles or, Wand of Fireball or whatever. Like anybody can use it. You don't have to necessarily be a magic user to be able to use it. But if you wanted to learn the spell and repetitively use it as kind of part of like your spell list, then you obviously have to, it has to be within your realm. So that's kind of the way that I've always looked at it, is like if you come across, if you stumble across a spell scroll,
I prefer
your barbarian can use it.
I prefer that way to how it actually is. If you go back to that episode, Adam will explain how it actually works. Because only Adam understands.
Well, actually, princess, just pushes his glasses up. Well, actually.
Glasses on today.
All right.
Kind of like the chaos of the idea of giving a scroll of fireball to a barbarian.
Don't do it. Never do that. All right. Moving right along.
We've taken a turn. So gone off topic.
Reminder, we're talking about yellow musk zombies and yellow musk creepers, and we're moving on to exploration currently. In my head I want to talk about the existential horror and dread, but like I feel like you can only do that with the zombie portion of it. However, I do think that the yellow musk creeper, even though it appears as a regular flower, would have a really awful smell.
I mean, its smell is what attracts you to it. That's what charms you.
But when you're uncharmed,
it is described as a musk, though.
But like,
but
there's musk and stank, and a gentleman knows the difference.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it just smells like a really hot guy.
Maybe, but like
That's
here's
how
the thing.
you get charmed.
I feel this is how I would play it. If you fall victim and you are charmed by it, you think it smells really good. If you are not fall victim to its charm and you pass all your saves, then I feel like those who pass the save would be like, that actually smells really awful. You should probably not go near that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Which the DC is only an 11, so like.
Yeah, it's like, ew.
Yeah.
I don't
Like
understand why you think that smells good.
At least half the party is saving,
Yeah. But then when it comes to the zombie, like looking at the art, I think you can like really lean into like describing and like listening to the sounds. Like I feel like it had like creaky, like that weird like creaky bone, like almost like petrified wood moving is how I imagine this sounds when it moves around. So if you were hunting them down or trying to look for one, like I feel like that would be listening for one moving around within the area would be something that you can do. Yeah. What about you, Peps?
I like the idea of, do you remember way back in our Lich episode when I talked about the lichen liches? Not the lichen liches.
not the lichen liches, but the lichen liches. Yeah.
The lichen liches that are druidy liches. Reside in like a creepy lich forest. Having these in there, I think like these would very much find a place in that forest, and you would just see like things kind of slowly moving around the forest and like not really knowing, because they only have a 20 feet walking speed. So like these zombies would just sort of be wandering and waiting, and they only have like 7 days before it expires. Yeah. Like, can you imagine though just walking through a forest and seeing something walk past you and just explode and a flower come out of it?
Talk about body horrors.
Right? Like that's what happens, and then the zombie just falls and is just like goo because it's been used as fertilizer for the past 7 days. So this vine has taken everything out of it that it possibly could.
It's just a husk.
And then you just see another thing walk by and like and another thing in the distance, and they just like keep wandering, and you don't know when any of them are gonna explode and like a flower's gonna appear out of it.
Yeah,
I love it.
I mean, like I would say that that's like environmental interaction as well, as just all of a sudden you like, you're walking through and there's just like a grove of these, and it just happens to be like, say like a previous party or whatever that ended up getting these, the musk creeper bulbs implanted in them, and all of them turned at the exact same time, and it's a week later and like you've been sent out to go try and find them because they haven't come back. And then all of a sudden you're just walking and they're just, and then your entire party has to roll to save who's getting infected, who's attracted to these flowers and things like that. Yeah,
because if you have a lot of them shooting off, that they can do it 3 times a day to try and get you charmed, like that definitely ups its odds.
It's creepy. I also like, and in like the exploration pillar piece, it's kind of like you see these like holes in the ground. Like, let's say you have like a rogue who runs across like a forest, and all of a sudden it's just like roll a deck save, and like if they just happen to lose it, then they just biff it because they they fall into a pothole of where one of these used to be, and then sprout it up, right?
Yeah.
But anywho, I think that's really neat. Combat tactics for these. I think what I just said fits into hunting one. I think if you're hunting one, like one of the zombies especially, you would probably look for the potholes in the ground of where it was raised. And then I feel like if you have someone who has survival skills or what have you, they can tell you how long it's been since the dirt's been turned. So you can be like, oh, it's probably either dead or gone or what have you. Like there's no saving it now or what have you, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see these. I can see this being in one of those like plot hooks of a town's forest is starting to be overrun by these things, and people are starting to go missing. And then you start seeing these things pop up everywhere, and these holes are appearing in the ground, and so on and so forth. And that's what that hunting strategy is going to come from: is follow the potholes and follow the vines, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, adorable.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think about it, it's hunting like it getting close to a town and just, I mean, it can only move 5 feet at a time, right? But like,
So, yeah.
if it's moving at night, you wake up and have one of these in your garden,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you know, and like, what is this? What is this new flower? Even like your party staying at a tavern wakes up and there's a new flower outside the door. And like, was that there yesterday? You know, like,
It's like the thing that's slowly moving towards you, but you can't tell.
Uh-huh.
But every time you
Yeah.
look up, like every 10 or 15 minutes, like slightly closer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what's that?
Oh,
I feel like
Lanta.
5 feet of
just
I
there?
feel like 5 feet of movement for a plant
Uh-huh.
is fast.
Yeah.
So I feel like I would
It's
be
that
more like
slow
concerned
horn.
about the fact that I'm like, that plant's moving pretty fast. The amount of movement the plant should have is 0.
Yeah.
Where's he going? What's he doing? You know?
You see it like,
Yeah.
Amazing.
how do
Like,
they
just-
move?
Well, they have legs.
They have, like, the
little root
vines.
legs. They've just got little
Yeah.
skittery root legs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Like, I
enough.
think like when you're
Yeah.
actually in combat with it, yeah, 5 feet of movement's not a
Mhm.
lot comparative
Yeah.
to your like 30, 35 feet of movement. But if it's just creeping up on you all of a sudden, you're like,
Mhm. Yeah, I think it is important to note too, the touch attack is not just like a touch attack, but that's when it implants its bulb in you,
mhm,
and you have 24 hours.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah.
To figure this out. Like,
Yeah.
if you hit one of the party members with that, and then it becomes a whole thing, like it's the whole next day.
It'll be the beloved NPC. Like,
Yeah.
you know? Like...
Yeah. Like, it is a clock ticking to get this thing figured out.
Yeah. Be amazing. Cool. All right. Well, that is it for the yellow musk creeper and zombie. So moving right along, Ehlwyn, what do you got for us?
So, I have the spawn of Kyuss coming out of Mordekainen Presents the Monsters Multiverse of Madness. But before we kind of get into the spawn of Kyuss, we kind of need to know who Kyuss is to begin with. So, it's kind of written within the lore, kind of agreed upon amongst scholars and things like that, that he was a demigod, an immortal necromancer. Some say that he was a devout high priest of Orcus, but there's not a lot of kind of consensus on that. But doing as necromancers do, he liked to make undead creatures and play with dark magic. He was exiled from his kind of society, but he wasn't really fazed by that because he took the opportunity to become a prophet of a dark cult that held belief in the Age of Worms. And during that time, he also discovered an island called Wormcrawl Island, west of Faerun, just off the coast of Maztica. Claiming the dead civilization in the ruins there, he ruled as a god king. It was there that his disciples and in turn Kyuss, found the means to kind of transcend his mortality. And that kind of came at the price of he got all of his priests to slaughter all of his disciples, and then he slaughtered his priests. And kind of as a consequence of that, he both kind of gained and lost his divinity, became neither mortal nor god, but instead became a 30-foot tall mass of worms and maggots known as the worms that walk. And the worms kind of like, he was just a mass of worms, and they retained like the psychic imprint of the former demigod of Kyuss. So they kind of retained some of his essence. So kind of like Father, like Spawn, the spawn of Kyuss is a chaotic evil medium undead creature. In low light or from a distance, they look like any run of the old mill like zombie. But as you get closer, you soon realize that they are covered in squiggling green worms that are crawling in and out of all of its orifices and all over the humanoid skin. These worms are akin to the ones that are on the worm that walks. They will jump from the infected to unaffected, burrow into their bodies, infect their brain, kill the host, and then reanimate the corpse, only to reproduce and become another spawn. Complete nightmare fuel.
Yeah, I really appreciate doing this right before I go to bed.
Right?
These are the best
Like,
episodes for that.
as I was reading it, and like when you look at the art that's in the book as well, it kind of has like 3 pictures. You kind of see like a shadowy humanoid, and then you get a little bit closer, or it gets a little bit closer, and you kind of just see what looks like a regular zombie, and then all of a sudden it's just like worms jumping off of its skin, which is disgusting, and it just makes my skin crawl. So spawn of Kyuss are found either in the Underdark or kind of in like desert arid areas. They travel without purpose. And when you come across one of these, though, you will find that it will try to attack you because its sole purpose is to reproduce. And they can reproduce exponentially if unstopped. So they can become a big problem real quick. So getting into the stat block of these guys, there's kind of 2 parts to the spawn of Kyuss. There's the humanoid creature as a whole. It's an AC of 10. It's got 30 feet movement. It's got about 76 hit points. Strengths are kind of all usual. It's got a +3 to strength. It's got a 0 to dex, +4 to con, -3 to intelligence, -2 to wisdom, and -4 to charisma. So they're not cognitive based, they're more kind of physical buffy. They've got dark vision. They have damage immunity to poison, condition immunity to exhaustion, and being poisoned. Their challenge rating of 5. The languages that it understood were that it knew in life, but it can't speak. It has regeneration. So the spawn of Kyuss regains 10 hit points at the start of its turn if it has at least 1 hit point, and it isn't in sunlight or a body of running water. If it takes either acid, fire, or radiant damage, then it doesn't regain 10 hit points at the start of its next turn. And the spawn is only destroyed if it starts with 0 hit points and can't regenerate. The worms that are on it kind of function almost separately. If the spawn of Kyuss is targeted by an effect that cures disease or removes curse, then the worms infesting it wither away and it loses an action that it has called Burrowing Worm action. Burrowing Worm action essentially is the worm launching up to 10 feet off of the spawn of Kyuss to another humanoid. It latches on unless you succeed on a Dex 11 saving throw. The worms are tiny. They've got their own kind of little stat block. They've got an AC of 6. They've got a single hit point, and they have a -4 in every ability score. And they have a speed of 1 foot. But while on a target's skin, the worm can be killed by means of like scraping it off or like getting it off or something like that. But so if you don't get it off on that turn, it burrows under your skin. And it deals 1 piercing damage. At the end of the turn thereafter, the target takes 7 points of necrotic damage, or 2d6 of necrotic damage to a maximum of 10d6 necrotic damage, because it stacks for how many worms you have on your body. And then if the target dies, or if it drops to 0 hit points, you have 10 minutes until it reanimates as a spawn of Kyuss. So if one of these worms ends up infecting a party member and that party member ends up dropping because of it, you have 10 minutes until it becomes a spawn of Kyuss. And then the actual spawn of Kyuss itself, so the humanoid, has a claw attack, and it's also got a multi-attack. So it can use 2 attacks with its claw and use Burrowing Worm. So kind of all in all, if you're coming up on a mass horde of them, kind of bad news bears.
We always talk about how hordes of these things are always no fun.
Yeah. Yeah, no fun. Yeah, so I don't know. I've got the heebie-jeebies right now. I'm really itchy on my skin, just thinking about these worms crawling all over.
Fair enough. All right, shall we raise some dice, ladies? I rolled a 2.
I rolled a 19.
16.
Look at you guys go. All right, well, Ellie, you're up first.
Well, I've rolled a 4 and a 5, so
honestly, the last couple episodes I've rolled pretty like above 10 pretty consistently. This is the first like shitty roll I've done in a while, so I will say that. But Ellie, we'll start with you. So of course, as we do a role-playing aspect that you want to chat about?
Yeah, so as I was kind of like thinking of these, the thing that kind of stood out a lot is like from its description, from the distance, it just looks like any old zombie. And it's only until like you really come up on it that you're just like, gross. And I feel like once you get to that point, it's that point of no return. Like this thing's gonna come after you. It knows that you're there as well. It's gonna try and get as many of its little wormy worms on you as it possibly can, and you're in the thick of it. And so it's one of those, it could just be one, which for a party would probably be pretty easy to deal with. But if you're throwing a horde at it, because it can reproduce and reproduce and reproduce, because there's hundreds of these worms on it, you could come up on complete droves of this. And then that's kind of that point where your party needs to be like, are we doing this or are we getting out of here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about you, Pep?
So like monsters that have like one purpose are always interesting to me because like you have to play it so obsessed that there is nothing that is going to stop this thing. Like it's not gonna back away. It is not going to like not fight you. It has one purpose, and that purpose is to create more. And the only way to create more is to get close to you and to spread these worms. So like there's almost no running from it. And there's no like, I'm just gonna go over here. It will follow you. If it sees you, it will follow you. There's no like, I'll just leave that alone.
Yeah.
So I would definitely like, it might move slower than you, but it will follow you. It will find you. Like
it's got a 30 feet movement, so it's going about same pace that you are.
Yeah,
and it'll eventually like pace with you or like just be extra creepy.
Yeah.
I know.
So you're either dashing out of there or it's dashing towards you.
Yeah. Sorry, did you say it had languages as well?
So it understands the languages that it knew in life, but it cannot speak.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like it would almost want to like DM play that a little bit, like as a role-playing tip. It's just like if it can understand what you're saying, it will know that you're either working against it or or wanting to help it even in any way, shape, or form. Like if you can almost trick it into thinking that you want to help it with its like spawning or respawning thing, will take you to a larger group. Like you can almost evil campaign this thing and like coax it into taking over a town for you.
You could. It's not smart.
No.
It's not smart.
It'd be like, absolutely, I will go do that thing for you in a creepy
-3
way.
intelligence, -2 wisdom. It's not smart. And I mean, the worms have a -4 in everything. So I mean, it's not intelligent, so it could definitely fall for that.
Yeah.
I just had like a thought of if the worms talked and they'd be like the aliens from Toy Story, like, ooh.
Oh.
Oh, lordy.
No.
Gross.
Now I want the worms to talk. See, this is why you need a druid in every party. They could cast talk with animals, speak to the worms.
I guess would the worms be considered just worms, or would they be considered undead? Oh, they're tiny undead. Yeah, they're tiny undead. So they're undead. So you would have to say speak with dead.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah. All right.
Environment. I mean, you're coming up on these, either in the Underdark or in the desert. I mean, I think it would be a little bit more startling to come upon them in the desert. The Underdark, I think when you go down into the Underdark, you're expecting that you're going to be running into creepy crawlies, and it's just kind of a given, and you're kind of mentally preparing yourself for that. But you're going through the desert, and all of a sudden you just see, and it's kind of one of those, it could be, you kind of see off in the distance, and it kind of plays into the description. You see off into the distance something that's kind of stumbling, and you're like, oh God, is this like, is this somebody that's stuck out here? Like, I need to go aid it. It needs water, like that person, I need to go help that person. And then you get a little bit closer, and then you get a little bit closer, and then you're like, nope. So that's kind of body horror, environmental interaction. I mean, if you're in the desert and you find one of these things.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, body horror, there is a lot to go off of with these because they're horrible. They're so horrible. Especially with the worms like going in and out of the orifices, and like Like you see one go through the ear and then come out of its like corner of its eye, you know, and then like crawl up its forehead. Blech.
I just
Oh, did you just send us? Ew.
I just put it in the chat. I just put the art in the chat.
Oh my Lanta.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I saw that and I was like, no, no.
No, yeah. I would definitely have like before you see this guy, your party like a worm's gonna fall from the ceiling and land on somebody's shoulder, or like you'll hear a crunch under your foot, and it's a worm.
Oh.
Like you'll start seeing more and more worms the closer you get to it. Like it's leaving a trail behind, but just having one like drop from a ceiling in a cave, like just land on somebody's shoulder. Because, like, if that happened as just a normal worm, you're freaking out.
Yeah.
Like,
anything drops on you from above, you're just like, eh.
Yeah. I feel like this could be like one of those Indiana Jones trap moments, you know? Where there's just like worms and bugs and like holes and crevices while you're trying to like solve puzzles and stuff like that. And so like you're eventually going to be like creeping up to where one of these is. And I feel like it would only be like, again, one of your druids or your animal folks is going to be like, no, these are very particular, very special kind of worm. You know what I mean? So, I hate it.
I also feel like there would be like a level of like sound that comes along with like just the worms squirming around as well. Like there's just like a really weird, like rustly, like just like a bucket full of worms has like that. Yeah. There's gonna be some.
I don't like it. Like it. I am gonna message you both when I wake up with nightmares.
You're welcome.
Oh man.
We're gonna get on a video call and you two are gonna sing me to sleep.
Sounds good. We can do that.
You're welcome.
For combat, I mean, I would say I feel like because it doesn't have a very high intelligence, it wouldn't really have like kind of like a pack mind to it. But I also feel like they, much like regular zombie hordes and things like that, like they would be walking around in droves, or they could be walking around in droves. And so you could come up on, like they're aimlessly walking around, like they're walking around without purpose until they find something that they're able to infect, and then they kind of spring into action. And I just feel like you could come up on one, but then there's multiple all of a sudden because it just took out a party not 10 minutes ago. Because it only takes 10 minutes for it to respawn. And I think that that's kind of like, that's an interesting part of it, is that it only takes 10 minutes for it to reanimate a corpse. And it could use that to its advantage, because really like its only drive is to respawn more. And so it's going to try and kill you as quickly and as effectively as possible so that it can keep going. So yeah, I think as far as like how it hunts or things like that, like it's gonna be by itself until it's not by itself, if that makes sense. Like you're gonna come across, like you're wandering through the Underdark and you're gonna turn the corner and there's gonna be one, and then you'll deal with it, but then you'll turn the corner and there's another one, and there's another one, and there's another one. And so it's just gonna kind of come in droves.
Yeah. Waves. Yeah.
Thinking about what happens when it dies, like obviously it just like busts into like a pile of worms, right?
It's like an Oogie Boogie kind of like thing, you know what I mean? Like,
But like, how long do you give those worms to still be able to affect people?
They've got a single hit point. So I mean, like you could just be walking all over top of them and just crush them.
Yeah. But if you're walking over top of them and you don't notice one goes up your pant leg,
like a tick.
It's like a leech. It's like a leech thing.
Yeah.
Or it's like a leech or a tick.
Like a tick.
Yeah. Like as the party, you need to deal with these worms. You cannot just leave them out into the world.
This is where Fireball comes in handy.
Yes. Like you have to burn this pile of worms.
Yeah.
And as the DM, if they don't, that will come back.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, yeah,
because it doesn't necessarily say, like, in the stat block and things like that, like, if these worms can't survive off of its host. Like it's not explicit saying that. So like if some worms happen to not land on you and they're just kind of crawling around on the ground, or you do kill the the spawn of Kyuss, but maybe a couple of them escape.
Yeah. And I would use swarm mechanics for that. It'd be
Yeah.
like it'd be like a swarm of something, right?
Yeah.
Because they're probably going to run away in the same direction, so
because like looking at the art, it's covered in worms.
Yeah.
Like,
it's covered.
It's not just a couple, like it's hundreds of worms on this thing.
Yeah.
Like it's
It's gross.
So like
talking about it, just keep getting itchy.
So like that is, I mean, even if you just give them a small amount of time to be able to survive on their own, like if they have a day before they die, they have a day to find a new host.
Yeah, and like I would say like a day, and they just have to find a host. Like it could be anything. Like again, like it doesn't necessarily say, well, it does say add a humanoid. So I mean, I guess if you wanted to bend the rules, you could say it infects an animal.
Anything. Yeah.
An animal, anything. Like as long as it's got a brain that it can control, it could infect it. But I mean, yeah, like it could be that it's, it's got a speed of 1 foot, which is quite fast for a worm. Again, I'm going to point out that these things like the creeper, the yellow musk creeper, feel like they're a little fast for what they actually are.
Yeah. But also they can like jump 10 feet.
Yeah, well, they can like launch themselves off of the spawn of Kyuss onto its target's skin.
Yeah.
So yeah, like they can, they've got a jump of 10 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just like the idea that they jump at you. I think that's the part that I'm just like, don't jump at me, worms. That's weird.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, if you
your monk's just trying to punch worms out of the air.
That's why
you're just like swatting them away. It's a DC of 11 dex, so I mean, it's pretty simple to succeed. But if you fail, I think it's pretty funny if you do fail.
Would these be considered like a missile, like for your monk ability to catch a missile and throw it back at something? Like if it jumps at you and they catch it, could you toss it?
Maybe?
Yeah.
I'd say yes. Just for the flair.
Yeah.
Do it for the plot.
Man. Yeah, your monk's just chucking worms around the room.
Yeah.
Fucking creepy.
I mean, also if you have a monk that does request if they can do that, it also comes with the downfall of if they don't roll very well, they can certainly catch it.
There you go.
Where they end up flicking it
Yeah.
could be on one of their
I would let them do that.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, of course you can like detect missile and yeet it somewhere else, but it's gonna land on someone else who's within 5-10 feet of you. So congratulations.
And it's gonna land on a friendly.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, that's it for the big, awesome ones we're going to talk about today. I do have a couple of like leftover smaller ones to kind of chat about since we're talking about weird, gross plants. One to cover is the Undead Tree, which can be found in the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. It is basically just a tree that hangs out the outside of like an evil, I'm going to say, I don't know what it is, a Rakshasa, I believe, along with a nice little banshee. It basically says to use the treant stat block, except that the tree is undead and has resistance to necrotic damage, which is very interesting. So if we look at the treant in 5th edition, it does make it a challenge rating of 9. And I think it's really cool because it has false appearance. So you think it looks like a regular tree, but it's not. And then the treant deals double damage to objects and structures. So like if it's in a space, it's going to hit things and murder things, right? It does have, of course, its multi-attack for 2 slams or throws rocks at you. And then it has the ability to animate other trees. So the treant magically animates 1 or 2 trees it can see within 60 feet. And these trees have the same statistics as a treant, except that they have the intelligence charisma scores of 1, so they can't speak. Whereas a treant can speak Common, Druid, Elvish, and Sylvan. So it is very interesting. But the undead version is kind of cool because it is, if you do kill it in here, you will find inside of it an undead, I believe, gnome. Let me double check. The skeleton, there's a skeleton in the hollow cavity of it where there is a gnome skeleton that is lodged inside of it.
Like it. Love it.
Yeah. So
Oh, me.
I know. So basically,
Yeah.
kind of just took over its body, XYZ, and then kind of grew into a beautiful undead treant. And then there you go. Goes from there. The last one is the Parasite-Infested Behir, which, if you guys aren't familiar with what a Behir is, they look very, very disgusting. They're kind of like those long lizardy things, but they have way too many legs for no fucking reason. So now imagine this as like an undead version that is now infested with bugs and other weird, gross nastinesses within its mouth hole. And when it roars or releases its like lightning attack that it has, it expels bloodworms from its mouth.
Hmm.
It has a con save of a DC 19, or they latch onto you and then suck the life out of you on each of your turns while it's attached to you. And only a spell that has the ability to remove disease can get rid of it. Sorry, and that one's in Candlekeep Mysteries. That's another one of those Candlekeep ones. So this is actually another one of those weird experimented on creatures from that Xanthoria, who we spoke to earlier.
Yeah.
But another weird, creepy thing to note about these is that, of course, Behirs, as frightening as they exist, also have a crawling and climbing speed. So technically, it's an environment. It likes to hide and then like jump out at you. So it'll crawl on the walls and it'll crawl on the ceiling and then like vomit bugs on you.
It kind of looks like a cross between a basilisk and a centipede.
Yeah, but the other thing you have to remember, it's considered a huge. It's a huge monstrosity.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it's big.
Yeah, she big. So not only does it have this like weird worm attack, but of course, as a Behir, it has the ability to. So the lightning breath is what is replaced with the vomiting of the bugs.
Yeah.
But then it also has the ability to swallow you, and then has its classic multi-attack of bite and constricting you. So these ones I don't recommend.
So it's a giant nope rope.
A what, sorry?
A giant nope rope.
Oh, a giant nope rope. That
With
sounds
legs.
creepy. Giant nope rope with legs. Anyways, that was a brief discussion of those ones just because like we are creeping up on time and I don't want to go too far into them. But again, the Undead Behir can be found in the Candlekeep Mysteries, and the Undead Tree can be found in the Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus. So, but yeah, that's that.
I'm just looking up Behir now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was right next to the basilisk when I was doing that research.
Yeah.
It's another one with all the legs.
Yeah.
Megan knows how I feel about legs.
You know,
Going on a big rant.
More than 4 legs is too many legs.
Too many legs. This one has like 12 of them.
Yeah.
12 of them and bloodworms? No, thank you.
less than 2 legs naturally is. Why is my hand up?
Because you put your hand up and Zoom now does that. It registers. It also does the thumbs up sometimes, but mine is really bad. I was saying this the other day that it registers it when I don't want it to, and then it doesn't register it when I want it to.
No, don't like that. Yeah. Don't like Zoom. Yeah, no, I always say naturally less than 2 legs, not enough legs, and naturally more than 4 legs, too many legs.
Yeah, agreed.
Thanks.
Spiders are looking at you.
Yeah.
So, on a scale of 1 to 10 worms under your skin, how would you rank these creatures as part of the undead landscape in D&D 5th edition? We're going to start with Myconids and their Spore Servants.
Myconids are my friend.
Yeah.
I feel like you could make friends with them, so I'm not scared of them.
I know, I've never been scared of Myconids. I always want to be friends with them.
But they're cool.
I did have, and I've told the story about Ellis several times. And she ran a druid school in a Fey forest, and we actually had Myconids that were like our kitchen staff.
Nice.
But, like, they cooked meals for all of the like 600 dwarven students. So
yeah. In our campaign, we have Myconids that run the sewers, like clean them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
so
yeah, never been like creepy crawling on the Myconids. Spore Servant, however, beefy.
Well, no, that's not the Fungal Servant.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
yeah, Spore Servants are just like
sorry. Yeah.
They are what you're thinking of. They are not that great. Yeah.
Okay, Spore Servants. Yeah.
All right. So, like, on a scary aspect, not very high on our worms under your skin, but as like we love Myconids.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 on Myconids are friends.
All right, so the Fungal Servant.
Beefy. Why is it that beefy?
Yeah. I'd give that one
10. It's fucking frightening. It's a mummy lord with undead. Like it's like No,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah.
Well, and like it's legendary actions and like its ability to like poof itself into spore dust and reappear somewhere, like it Misty Steps as Spore.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No thanks.
Hard pass.
Yep.
Yellow Musk zombies. Let's also tie in the creeper to this because I feel like you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, I feel like they're the same.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, honestly, like on a scale of 1 to 10, if I would be deceived by this, it's a 10. Like I'd be like, oh, pretty plant. Like, you know?
Yeah.
You smell pretty.
Yeah, and then just absolutely like it's creepy though, because then you go to like pull the plant up, and it's one of those like weird, you can't like pull the plant out of the ground, and then this thing just like rises up at you. It's like, so I give it a 6 or a 7. I just think generally because I could be fooled by it, I don't much care for it. Yeah.
And like on the CR rating of everything we've talked about, like these are the lowest. The zombies are a quarter. The creeper is a 2. But I think creatively as a DM, you could very much like there's a lot of use.
Yeah, we like them.
They could pop up anywhere.
Yeah.
Like Megan said, like you're going to fall for this.
I will fall
like,
for it. Yeah.
Like as a player, you're going to go buy the pretty flower and not think anything about it.
Yeah.
So like that level of trickiness definitely I think gives it more points to like a
I'd say like
6 or 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Spawn of Kyuss. Ick factor
10.
Literally 10.
Yeah.
They're literally under your skin.
Yeah.
Like
crawling worms.
Just 10.
I don't even care what its abilities are. It's icky and I don't like it.
Yeah.
Undead Tree.
I mean, treants are kind of frightening to begin with. The fact that now it's like an undead version of that. Like I would give it like a 7 or an 8, just out of its like it would be hard to kill one.
Yeah.
And I would be fooled by this because it would just look like a regular tree. And then I fight it, and then I find another like an undead body that was probably feeding it on the inside. Absolute creep factor.
Yeah, I like that it's a gnome inside of it, so that gives it like a 9 for me.
It's very specific. I'm sure there's some historical background that someone's going to tell me about that online as soon as this episode airs, but there you go.
Yeah. If
There
anybody knows why gnome, let
lore.
us know.
Yeah. They weren't my focus of this episode. They were just a little, here's a thing that you can use.
Here's a thing. All right, and our last guy, the Parasite-Infested Behir.
10.
Yeah.
No, that's a
the fact that it's a monstrosity. Yeah, the fact that it's a monstrosity. Hard pass. Like, like it's not going to vomit tiny worms at you. It's going to vomit like giant worms in your face. Like, no thanks.
Yeah.
Or it's just going to be like so many tiny worms.
Blood, and they were called bloodworms.
Yeah. It vomits up a spawn of Kyuss. Like,
oh, gross. No.
Buying them all.
Yeah.
All right. That's probably the highest that we've like rated all the things.
I think the internet's now learned what our ick factor is.
Yeah. This one's
Creepy
like
crawlies.
Really. Yeah.
We always like again, Mieka will always find a way to be like, you know, that's mid and like you bore me, you know, like you're not worth my care. I feel like if she was on this episode, she would also be like hard pass. Like I would turn and I would walk out of the room. There's like no way I'm dealing with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, these are all just icky for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
I think the only one that's not like physically icky is probably the Undead Tree.
And technically the Myconids in my mind, because they're just little mushrooms. Just little mushroom dudes. Like,
that's
you know?
true. We rated the Myconids high because we liked them.
Yeah. Because we liked them, because I feel like,
they just look like they're just like fungus though. Like, which isn't like gross.
But like they could be. They could because like they're humanoid, but like the way that the different kind of like flutes of the fungus, is that flutes? Does fungus have flutes? The different ways that like the gills of the fungus and things like that. I know mushrooms have gills. can kind of like
You're
form
talking about
around
the
it.
webbing? Is that what you're talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah.
Well, yeah, like the
I'm gonna Google it. What is the webbing on a mushroom?
well, it's the
Sorry.
gills. Like the underneath is their gills or something like that. What are they called?
Mycelium will be right. No, I
Mhm.
think that's just mold.
Yeah, that's the like white bits that
Yeah, what is
like
the mold?
start
Yeah.
to grow from it. It's not necessarily mold, it's like it trying to grow more.
Anatomy of a
believe.
mushroom. The gills. Yeah, gills, pores, spines.
You called it. Look at you.
Yeah.
Professional.
Yeah. So like kind of like the way, because like if you think of mushrooms are very like uniform in the way that they grow, but fungus is a little bit more almost like asymmetrical. It can kind of grow like lumpy on one side and that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So like you could
Mm.
definitely make myconids gross.
Fair enough.
Or you
Okay,
can
I
make them
accept.
adorable.
But they're adorable. But they're
that
adorable.
Carry a
At the
plastic
end of the day, they're
cocktail
adorable.
knife.
Yeah.
And hang out on your shoulder.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
now it's time to close the casket on this part of our conversation on Undead in D&D 5th edition. If you'd like to discuss what you've heard here today, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and at r/it'samimic. For more episodes on monsters and other D&D topics, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Bring Out Your Undead. If you'd like to support us, we have a donate button on our website, www.it'samimic.com, as well as a store and a Patreon. You can check out show notes for more details. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're going to get. I'm Megan, and I have reanimated both Ehlwyn and Peps to continue recovery. Welcome to another episode of Bring Out Your Undead. I am Megan, and I have reanimated Peps and Ehlwyn. I can't die. You know what, guys? I want to go to bed so bad. I had a nightmare last night, and I've been up since 1 a.m.
Oh,
And then work started at like 7 because most of my people are on the East Coast. And I
Mhm.
literally just finished and I had a full day of meetings. And I regret having a standing desk because I just want to lie down and die right now. So,
So just bring your laptop down to the ground, bring your mic down, just lie down.
I don't have a laptop anymore. It's a fucking PC.
Oh, right. Oh, shit.
Yeah. So
Never mind.
we're here. Anyways, starting again from the top, everybody.
Amazing.
I don't remember if we do an ad break thing in this point. Do we in these epides? It's like it's
Nope.
my first day today.
Nope.
There's
We just jump
usually
right
a
in.
thing that says if we do.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna roll
Yeah.
right into it. If there's an
Yeah.
ad break, there's an ad break. Enjoy. If not, here we go.
Oh, wow.